You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Trump broke a 3,000-year-old sacred law and triggered a nightmare based on an article by Tom Hartman. Myth cannot hide a state ambush. A source tries to dress a political operation in scripture and antiquity: Zeus, Abraham, Jesus, Iranian hospitality, Trojan horses. Strip away the pageantry, and the story is still about power, not cosmology. The actors named in the piece are Trump, Netanyahu, Kushner, Witkoff, Vance, and the institutions they represent. If the article's claims are accurate, the central fact is not a broken sacred code, is that state power was used to turn negotiation into a trap. The power is here. The article points to the people with actual leverage: the U.S. president, Israeli state power, and the American intermediaries carrying messages and offers. That is the only level at which this story matters politically, not the literary frame, not the sermonizing about guest friendship. The decision makers are the ones who can move bombs, intelligence, sanctions, and diplomacy. That matters because the source keeps translating agency into myth. But myth does not launch strikes. Myth does not target a compound. Myth does not author the asymmetry in which one side gets to bargain while also legibly setting the terms for death. Hospitality as cover. The piece's strongest accidental point is also its most damning. Trust was used as access. The source describes Iranians meeting with Kushner and Witkoff, then says the site was bombed by the U.S. and Israel. If that account is true, the issue is not merely that a norm was violated. It is that diplomacy itself was weaponized. That is the basic authoritarian trick. Treat the offer of talks as proof of moderation, then use the talks as a map, wrap the ambush in formal process, and hope the public gets lost in the ceremony. Negotiation as ambush. The article also relays an allegation from Ryan Grimm and Jeremy Scale that Iranian officials believed the negotiations were being manipulated to move oil prices, with profits allegedly reaching $9 billion. That is not a side detail. It is the political economy sitting under the pageant. It's true, this was not just a military betrayal, but a financial one. Diplomacy used as an instrument of market gambling. That is the old imperial habit in modern clothes. Violence on one side, arbitrage on the other, and the public told to admire the seriousness of the process. The real blame: the article tries to convert a concrete chain of decisions into a universal fable about betrayal. Vague moral language is useful to people in power because it dilutes responsibility. Zeus Lord is a dramatic phrase. It is also a way of softening the actual names and offices involved. The blame does not belong to confused abstractions or to some generalized collapse of civility. It belongs to the officials and systems that allegedly chose deception over diplomacy, assassination over accountability, and profit over restraint. That is not misunderstanding. That is governance by ambush. The pattern. The larger pattern is familiar imperial violence justified as principle, then hidden inside ritual language so it looks older and cleaner than it is. Trump's record in the source is not presented as isolated misconduct. It is presented as a method of betrayal of allies, betrayal of treaties, betrayal of domestic law, betrayal of anyone who mistakes his promises for commitments. That is the broader political fact the article accidentally exposes. Authoritarian power does not only break rules. It rebrands rule-breaking as destiny, then recruits myth, religion, and patriotic theater to make the public tolerate what should be named plainly coercion, deceit, and state cruelty. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternate for today's article. With the automated voice of Norman, thanks for listening.